you can literally just sit in front of the mirror, no matter what age you are, and just look straight into your eyes, your own eyes, and just tell yourself, like, you can do this. You can be whatever you want to be, and that you are going to be okay with letting it take some time.
Welcome to the Soul Secrets Podcast. We're your hosts, Kirstin and Carli, where we open up our hearts to you in hopes that you'll open yours to ours. Tell them why we're here, Carli. Oh, I'll tell you. How about inspiration, transformation, of course, self-love, and fearless expression? We're going to share stories of triumph and tragedy and everything in between, what we've learned and what we've gained, and in hopes that it will help you along the way. Let me tell you something, y'all. We've spent a lifetime keeping it inside, and we finally realized that it's our time to shine and speak our minds. You know you're going to want to hear it. Stick around while we share our soul secrets.
So, welcome to Soul Secrets, Kirstin.
Welcome. Last time on the episode, you mentioned the switch, and I know you tell me all the time, just make the switch.
Just make the switch, Carli.
So I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about it all the time because emotions can run high and go in the opposite direction in which you're telling me to switch the thought, the memory, whatever it is. So I would love for you to share that time in high school when you actually did the switch and how transformational that was and how you just kept doing it and doing it and doing it and then trusting yourself in this process.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just remarkable what you did as a high schooler. I just can't even believe this story.
Okay. So, so I talk about the switch a lot. It's basically you just have to make that switch in your head that this is what you want, and this is what's going to happen. And it's really actually super easy because it really is just flipping a switch. But for most people, I think they think that it's hard. And so a lot of times I'm just telling people, make the switch, make the switch. And they're like, what do you mean? But I can give you a good example for me when I feel like I flipped the switch. I was bullied. So I started a new school in third grade, and it was a very small private school, probably about 40 kids in my class, in my whole grade. And I came from a new school, and so they already had their popularity, chosen who was popular, who was not, and I was new. And so they had their chance at me, and I was vulnerable. And they picked on me from third grade to eighth grade, middle school. And by the time ninth grade came around, and I don't mean just like picking. I mean, I did have glasses and braces at some point, so I mean, I get it. I went through a little chubby phase and everything. But this was, in PE, we had to play dodgeball. And oh, it's going to be fun. Let's just throw the ball at Kirsten's face and break her glasses. I mean, typical movie stuff, push me down the stairs. All my books went everywhere. I mean,
Wow.
it's horrible. I mean, and so my mom, I'd come home crying every day. I'm like, I can't do this anymore. Finally, she, as amazing as she is, she stepped up and said, okay, I'm going to get a second job and I'm going to send you to another school that costs more money, but I want you to be happy. And so she did that for me. So she sent us to a new school, and I was going into 10th grade. And of course, at that point, my self-esteem had gotten pretty low. I was still trusting, oddly enough, I do still remember trusting my intuition and still loving myself. Don't ask me how. I mean, don't get me wrong. There were many times I looked in the mirror and was like, oh, I'm ugly, I'm chubby, I'm this, I'm that, all those things. But deep down inside, I really loved myself. I just remember I had one of those long mirrors, and I just sat on the floor right in front of the mirror. It was on my closet door. And I just looked into the mirror at myself, and I just said, you are going to go to this school, and you're going to act like your shit don't stink. You're going to walk in there, and everybody's going to love you. And you're just going to show them who you are. Because I don't know, it's like it just came to me. It was like, you get to tell them who you are. I knew I was going to be new, and they didn't know me from anybody. So I said, you go in there and you tell them who you are. And so I spent the whole summer, I say it was a switch. I mean, it was that moment when I was like, this is what I have to do. But I spent the whole summer sitting in front of the mirror, looking at myself and telling myself, you are beautiful. Like you are something, you're going to go in there and everyone's going to love you. You are kind. You have a great heart. Like people are going to see this, just over and over, things like that. And, really actually believing it in myself. So when I walked into that school, that's what I did. I mean, I remember walking on campus and just being like, having my book sack and just going, wow, you're amazing. Like everyone loves you. And just looking around and pretending like I was popular. I kind of thought about what would the popular girl do? And I just acted like her. So it's like I just imagined her, this popular girl that I wanted to be in my head. And I just pretended to be her. I basically faked it till I made it, And, some people will say faking it is, it's not a good thing. But if you realize that when you're faking it, you're actually still doing something. And then when you make it, then you've done it. And then you weren't faking it because you did it. So not being scared is actually, pretending like you're not scared is actually not being scared. And so they all loved me. Within 2 weeks, the teachers had voted me with an award called Random Acts of Kindness. It was like they saw through me. They saw to my soul. They saw my heart and they saw who I was, but it was only because I showed them who I was. I didn't go in there guarded. I showed them what I was inside, who I was, and they soaked it up. And next thing you know, I mean, my whole life, a dream would be to be on homecoming court, right? I mean, to be nominated to be on homecoming court was, like, beyond something I could never even imagine, and sure enough, here comes the ballot and my name's on it, and I'm like, "Whoa." I mean, it's just unbelievable, and then next thing I knew, my senior year, we're voting, for prom court, and what we did for prom court was we picked they called it favorites, and so the first category was most ideal, and honestly, I mean, I remember getting the ballots and I already knew in my head who was gonna win. This girl who does this, she does everything, and this guy does this, he's a part of all the sports, he's gonna win this, he's gonna win that. And so the first category was most ideal. And I literally raised my hand and I asked the teacher, I said, "What does that mean?" And he said, "Well, that's someone that exudes all the characteristics of, all the different categories like friendliest, best personality, most school spirit, everything." And so, I was like, "Okay, yeah, I got that. Okay, this is going to be for this girl because, she's head of the beta club and she's a cheerleader. That's an easy one. Mark, check. Okay." And then the next day I come in and they did one category at a time. And so they announced the nominees, and he starts writing on the board, and I see a K, and I'm thinking, "There's not many girls in the class with the name with a K." And then he writes the I and the R and the S and the T and I'm like, "That's my name." Like, what? I mean, and my first thought was, "Wait a minute. All of these people think they would like to be like me?" Because that was one of the other things he said. It's somebody who exudes all the characteristics of all the different categories, but also think of it this way. Who would you like to be like? Who in this class do you see and think, wow, I would like to be more like him or her? And they chose me. And so it was like the biggest compliment I could ever have. And I actually didn't receive the votes. I was nominated, but someone else got that. And then there was the most talented, and I was nominated for that one. And then someone else got that one. And then there was friendliest, got nominated for that one. And then I did get that one. So that's what I ended up with. I was happy with that. But it was just funny that my name just kept getting up there on the board. And it was just amazing. And it all happened because that one day I sat down and I told myself, I am all of those things. And I believed that I was, and then they all believed it too.
So how did that impact your life moving forward, do you think,
You
in
know,
a positive
it
direction,
definitely did
knowing you could
because
be anything that you say that you were?
right, I mean, it basically just proved to me. It proved to me it was a solid proof that this works. This way of thinking absolutely works. And so I just kept doing it throughout my whole entire life. And again, there were days when I looked in the mirror and thought, "Oh, man, like, I wish I was prettier, I wish I was this, I wish I was that," but all in all, deep down inside, I still believed in myself, and I still did believe that, and then I had those things to prove it, those experiences to prove it to myself.
So what would you tell an average person who is, let's say, a stay-at-home mom, has a bunch of kids, has some dreams, maybe she forgot about it, but she's wanting something different and she wants to maybe begin this process, but she has no idea because she thinks she has to do it a certain way, walk certain steps, have a degree,
Yeah, I
the
mean,
hierarchy, the things that the world says that you have to do to become who you are.
well,
What would you tell?
I mean, first of all, just say all of that is BS.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to do anything.
So all of that is BS.
It's all BS. I mean, you don't have to do any of
You
that.
don't have
I
to
mean,
do
it
any
is
of
a
it.
stigma that our culture, puts on us to make us feel like there's an order, and there's no order. I mean, you can go to college when you're 60 if you want to go to college. I mean, some people aren't really ready to go to college at 18. And if that's not what you're ready to do, don't do it, but keep know what's in your heart and follow that part.
So what would be step one?
Well, step one would just be thinking about what makes me happy. Well, it would be stopping and taking a minute to make space for grace and to think, give yourself the grace, give yourself the space, really listen to your intuition. What does my soul want? Think back to that little girl, that little boy that at 5 and 6 years old had all these dreams. What were those dreams? You can still do those things when you have kids or if your situation is tough. And there are people that it's a little bit easier for than others because of their circumstance, but it's also baby steps, little tiny baby steps. Nobody ever achieved anything in one day. I mean, start with the littlest thing, and that is just thinking
I
about
think
what you want to do.
what it sounds like is that the first step you took was you started it with a decision.
Right.
You started by saying, I am deciding to become this version because the old version was not working.
And that's what I call flipping the switch.
The decision. So that's the key point, is the decision.
Yeah.
And then the baby steps or the aftermath. Like
And you may have to flip the switch every day.
every day, flip it.
You might have to flip it.
Flip it.
It's like anything.
Mhm.
It's practice. Flip the switch every day. Just keep flipping it.
So that means you have to take captive every thought. Anything that comes and floats across your mind that is not in alignment with this new version. I am the best blah 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 that I am. Anything that floats across that says
Any negative thought has to go. You have 15 seconds.
15 seconds.
I have this whole other theory that we're going to get into in another episode about staying in what I call the high vibration on like I kind of imagine it like a disc, but we're going to talk about that for sure because that is definitely key. Hearing those words for sure. We'll talk about that maybe on the next podcast, but it really is just a switch that you flip, and it's as easy as it sounds. It can be hard because of those negative thoughts flowing in, and that's where this other theory I have is going to come in handy, but
So let's give everybody, a real life example. You've been kind of like my life coach these past 3 years, and you've told me that over and over. And I've practiced it, I think, in different
over and over you practice.
over and over in different ways. But how would you say I'm doing in that? I would say,
I'll rate you from that 1 to
well, I mean, just actually, let's share, not share, camera share with people. I guess what I'm saying is share with people what it looks like to try this out and share growth, things holding back. Like, just give people an example of a real life human who's practicing this.
Well, I mean, for me, it was that sitting in front of the mirror and just saying it. I mean, you can literally just sit in front of the mirror,
Mm-hmm.
no matter what age you are,
Mm-hmm.
and just look straight into your eyes, your own eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and just tell yourself, like, you can do this. You can be XYZ. You can be whatever you want to be, and that you are going to be okay with letting it take some time. Give yourself the grace, take the time, and keep positive about it. If you have any negative thoughts that come up, and they are going to come up because it's
Mm-hmm.
normal,
Sure.
you let them go. You replace them with anything positive that you can think of at the time, and then you might have to do that 1,000 times a day. But the first step, I think, is just facing yourself.
Facing self, expecting bumps, and keep on going.
Right.
So what's going to happen if somebody doesn't flip the switch? Like what happens when
You mean
when you don't flip that switch?
it's just in general when people don't flip the switch? I think they
What kind of opportunity do you see people missing? Or
their whole life.
okay,
I mean, you can miss out on everything that was meant for you if you don't do it. It's crucial. I mean, if you don't flip that switch and you don't have that belief in yourself and you don't let your soul just expand and just your intuition to tell you what, is going to make you happy, you're not going to be happy. And
there's one thing I want to have an idea to add to that is that flipping the switch, I think one thing that's important is that you reach a point in your life where you get tired, of the same thing over and over. You've got to get tired of the pattern.
Sometimes people do. And I mean, I was
That's
at a
the
point too. I mean,
that's
I
the
was
biggest gift.
tired. Yeah.
That's the biggest gift, though, is
Right.
reaching that point of, oh my gosh, I've had enough.
Right.
Because if you don't reach that point of having had enough, you keep on going up the mountain carrying rocks and boulders, and your life is
And it gets
miserable
harder and
forever.
harder. Yeah.
Forever. So, yeah,
Definitely. I
that
mean, I think it just takes hearing people talk about it, like normal everyday people talking about it and saying that they can do it. I mean, I didn't come from a background. I mean, I was lucky I had very supportive family, but I mean, we didn't have money, we weren't any kind of celebrities or anything. I mean, this was just the love and support that I had from my family, and you could even do it without the love and support of family.
Sure.
Because it really does all come from within.
Right.
It's within you.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to put all that behind you and just look in that mirror and just say, I got this.
I'd love to invite, our listeners to try that at home.
Yeah.
Something that you can try at home. This is very safe.
Yeah.
But like making a decision, it could be something really small, I want red Kool-Aid instead of blue.
Yeah, I mean, start there, I mean,
Pick something.
I definitely encourage you to practice
Yes.
it as often as possible, and let us know, like, what are you gonna practice, like, what is it that you want, just to prove to yourself that you can do it. I mean, it can be as simple as, "I wanna learn how to cook a spaghetti ABC. It's the easiest 1, 2, 3." Yeah, so, I mean, you just start, just do it,
Right.
Flip that switch, start that thing, and prove to yourself that you got this.
Okay.
The takeaway today
Our
for
soul
secret
soul secret takeaway today is
our soul secret sauce is to flip that switch, sit in the mirror, look at yourself, love yourself, and practice.
that switch.
Flip that switch. If you could share with us maybe a time when you made a switch, and have you kept up with the switch? Are you still making the switch every day? Is it a struggle to make the switch, or is it easy for you? Like, what's going on?
That's a loaded question, Chris.
Yes, I know. Loaded question. Loaded big potato for you.
I'd say that flipping the switch for me was the first time that I said yes to what I wanted. So when I got tired of the stories, tired of the patterns, as soon as I looked in the mirror and said, there's got to be more, is when I received my first special teacher that started teaching me the
And, like,
things.
how old were you at that time?
40, maybe 38. I think it was 38 when I actually started to seek more than my surroundings were telling me. So that was like switch number one, where I was just like, there's got to be more. So then as soon as I said that, as when the first teacher appeared, and I started being taught that everything is within. And so as I grew in that knowing and that embodiment, I started making other choices for exploration, like what do I want? And it was quite a process. I mean, it was a couple years, maybe even 3 years.
But do you feel like there was, like, a definitive day that you kinda remember? Like, did something happen?
I mean, a definitive day was when I was walking in the woods, doing like a walking like meditation. And I was just like praying, and I was like, okay, I just want truth. I want truth in my life. And I was 41 years old, and I had never asked for truth in my life.
Wow.
Never have I asked for that.
Do you think you were afraid of the truth maybe, or just that you thought you already had the truth?
I thought that I didn't have any other choice. I thought that truth meant
What you were doing?
intangible. Yeah, or there was an intangible. I was afraid of what was on the other side of that. I was scared because I was just doing everything I was told and what I thought. So I was scared to ask for truth because I thought I would die or something bad would happen in my life, or which things did change. But I remember at age 41 taking a walk in the woods, asking for truth. And then literally within 48 hours, I'm talking unbelievable truths that came forth in my life.
Yeah, because you were giving yourself the space to stop and think and be with yourself.
I only stopped for a few minutes. I mean, in the woods, but
Right.
honestly, it's like truth is available for you.
But you literally, like, gave it up. Like, you were just like,
I
"Okay,
did.
I'm done."
I did.
Like, I'm getting out of my own way.
It took a long time.
So you're, like, opening up this vessel, just almost like breaking your body breaking your body open to see your soul, let your soul just come out. You had just had enough.
I did. And as soon as truth came, I was faced with a decision.
Huh? What was that?
The decision was, do I want to stay married? And the truth was so great and so big and so vast and so detailed and so deep and so long that I had no choice but to continue to choose my own voice. And I did. And I said, no more. No more of this misalignment of the things that were going on that were out of integrity. And that was the big switch.
Yeah.
The big switch when I walked into the closet and put my clothes in a trash bag and walked out and never came back. Never returned to that pitiful me.
Yeah.
And so that was the biggest switch.
And I mean, we're not encouraging divorce by any means or just, one day deciding I'm just going to up and leave. It wasn't that. I mean, this was years
I
of
would encourage it if it's not in alignment with you.
what I'm saying is this is not just something you thought overnight. I mean, your marriage
Right.
was, not based on
Truth.
right.
Yeah, it was not based on
Right.
truth, yeah. As I discovered, it was based on other people's desires. It was based on family,
Exactly.
culture, all those things I mentioned.
Because again, yeah, you mentioned a few episodes that you got pregnant as a young person at 20 years old,
Yeah.
still figuring out who you were. I mean, you didn't even know who you were at that time. And I think because your marriage and everything was based on let's get married, we have a child, we have to do this.
Sure.
It was like you never got to see the truth of what was really happening, of who you really were, of who he really was.
Yeah.
And you were just basically living this lie
Yeah.
to yourself.
Living a lie.
Yeah.
Not knowing it. So, man, asking for truth, flipping that switch, and then comes the big part. When you're flipping a switch, it can feel different because when you're letting
Yeah.
go of something that is you've held on, it's interwoven into your body, your family dynamic, your living arrangement,
Yeah.
your way of being, your financial status, the things that are holding you up. When you have to let all of that go because of the switch and you don't have instantaneous gratification of like, I'm going to be okay, then you have to continue to walk through this unknown and go, oh my God, who am I?
Yeah. I mean, I have to give you
Where do I
credit
go?
though, because you did try. You realized it
Mm-hmm.
and you did think, okay, now I'm seeing some truth. Let me try to work this out. Let me try to work this out with my husband. And you did. You tried for at least a year, probably, really. I mean, you gave it your all
Yeah.
and but what you realized was that your marriage just wasn't built on it. And
Right.
20 years of built on not truth.
Right.
I don't wanna say lies, but not truth, not wholeheartedly 2 souls connecting with their truths.
Sure.
It wasn't there.
It was the point of no return. It really was, and not every relationship is the same.
Right.
People can, continue to grow together and reinvent
Yeah.
their relationship and their life and can experience, what the world has to offer. Or your judgments are so buried deep in all the stories that there's just no chance of a reconciliation.
Yeah.
So talk about a powerful switch. And from that switch, I have been flipping other switches of like, make music, sing, do it afraid,
Yeah.
try this job out, get
I
an
mean,
apartment.
do you think because you're saying, like, flipping other switches,
Yeah.
do you think that maybe there are multiple switches or that there is, one switch that we continue to switch and keep switched every day?
Well, I
You know what I
think
mean?
there's the switch of I am, right? I am the most amazing woman in the world with the most amazing voice. Loving this
We all
all
know
the
you are.
right? I mean, there's the big switch of like the I am this woman. But then there's little switches that are underneath that get to happen to become to be in alignment with the big switch, right? So if I'm all of
Right.
these things, but my baby switches are not allowing that girl and that woman to be birthed, then great, you flipped a big switch, but there's still many miniature choices that you get to make, in that, and it's not easy. It's not easy because the choices come with, letting go of old ways of being, and you don't feel like yourself. You feel different and you feel like completely floating, like you don't feel grounded, I should say. And
Right, and we all know how important it is to be grounded.
I'm learning that. I'm learning.
I know. Sometimes it's hard to be grounded because it feels boring, maybe, especially to you. I mean, the second Carly gets bored, it's, "Oh my gosh, we have to leave this situation." And I'm like, "No, Carly, we need to stay grounded. Remember, it's just part of life."
I'm like,
You know?
grounded. This is torture. No.
Right. And then the boring me comes in and is like, "No, stay grounded."
But the cool thing is when you're bringing up the, I know you feel bored, but stay in it. There's going to be gold at the end of the tunnel. There'll be something on
Well,
the
I
other.
personally don't feel bored because I know,
Well,
but
you've got
I
it.
feel like
You
other
have
people
it.
think that, I might be boring.
Well, you have it established in your nervous system, and you don't have to prove anything to anyone. So you simply be, and so that's not flashy.
Right.
When you're being, right? And so the only time somebody's gonna know about it is if you're coaching them like you've been helping me, or you're talking about it on a podcast because you're
Right.
just literally breathing and moving and being who you be.
That's right.
While people look and wonder, "Who is she? What is she doing? I don't like her. I don't like what she's doing. It makes no sense." And they start taking little jabs and not understanding you because they haven't actually asked to get to
Yeah.
know you, so
Well, and of course, that's where my insecurities come in. It's like, who really wants to hear me? Who really wants to hear me talk? It's probably boring.
the whole world.
But Carly says the whole world wants to hear. I gotta so
I'll tell you why, though.
Okay.
Okay, tell you why. The reason is because let's replace the word boring with patience.
Okay.
And
Take it.
let's add the word patience. And what happens when you have patience is you allow all the things to line up for you that don't happen instantaneously
Right.
from this like trauma
I
response.
mean, that is true.
So you know that my sense of running has wanted to keep me not bored or on
Right.
the next best thing, which I mean, of course, I love that anyway, for sure. But with the proper tools and coaching and whatnot to remain patient for a little while, an extra week staying in one place, 3 days here.
Well, and I think it's also if you can remind yourself that when you're in a hard time, instead of running,
Mhm.
that, okay, there are lessons to be learned here. And if I run, I'm not going to learn those lessons. And so if we can just it's okay to have the emotion. It's okay to think, this sucks. This really sucks. I don't like it here. But then stop and say, okay, but I'm here.
What's in it for me?
Right. So why? Why am I here?
Right.
And sometimes those lessons aren't going to be like blatant and in your face, right?
Sure.
Sometimes they're like hidden, and sometimes it takes your friend to tell you that's the lesson,
Oh my gosh. 100%.
right?
All of it.
But it's there. I mean, because I believe you wouldn't be there if you weren't supposed to be there. I mean, it's cliche, but you know, it's
Again, it's in your nervous system, embodied and known for sure.
and I really don't think you can take a right or wrong path because if you go left instead of right, you're going to have the lessons on the left and then you're going to have the lessons on the right and you're going to learn the ones on the left this time. And then next time you might go a little more to the right and you'll learn those lessons. And I believe it's sort of like a web.
My last name?
Yeah.
No kiss.
It's sort of like a web that you just feel through, and in the end, you might look back and see all the different lessons and what you've learned from them. And hopefully then you can also look back and say, ah, okay, now I see why I was there. And so maybe the situation you're in now, the current situation, you can take lesson from that saying, okay, that gave me a lesson,
Absolutely.
and so this probably is a lesson too.
It's been all of the above. It's been all of the above. I mean, some of it is, the lessons are known like in a day or two because I'm always looking at things linearly
Right.
and trying not to. Other times it's waiting. But what's in the waiting is your emotions. Like your emotions come up, your panic comes up, your anxiety comes up, your depression comes up. All of these things
Oh,
come
yeah.
up in the in between that you get to sit with because it's only you having that perception. Nothing else around you. You are literally having a fight or flight response. Like you're afraid if I don't run, I won't be safe because I've never been safe. And. So, all that to say is the gift with the patience and the gift with waiting, of course, within the realm of are you safe in this environment, is you get yourself back. You get your power back. You don't run from things that come into your life. You go, wait, hold on.
Yeah.
But you have to become selfless. You get to become less worried about yourself, which, we all are all,
Yeah.
that way at some point. And then but then out of that, you get to be the giver and the gift for others, and then you get to receive because
Yeah, and
Well,
I really do enjoy helping people. That's what makes me happy too. But and you were saying earlier about, running around. I just saw the movie Inside Out. Did you see that?
I did.
Inside Out too.
Yes.
And they introduced a new emotion and it was anxiety. And in the movie, the anxiety is just projecting the future everywhere. Right? And then all the other characters are like, oh, well, let's ask anxiety, like, as if anxiety knows the future, right? Because anxiety predicts the future. Anxiety is basically anytime you're living or thinking about the future, that's anxiety. Almost no matter what. Like, even if you're dreaming. Now, if you're dreaming about something and you're having a good feeling about it, then I wouldn't say that's anxiety. But if you're thinking about the future, even if you're just like, oh man, tomorrow morning I got to be at work at 8 o'clock and I'm not getting to bed till late tonight. The kids have games and I'm going to be so tired. I mean, that's anxiety. And I mean, while you probably are going to wake up and go to work at 8 o'clock, you don't know for sure that that's going to happen. You really don't. And there's no use in worrying about it right this minute
Mhm.
because if you're sitting there thinking that even for 10 minutes, you're missing 10 minutes of your life,
Mhm.
you know? So you really just have to not let that emotion, get to you. And in the movie, the anxiety was just spinning, spinning, spinning,
And she was
spinning.
frozen.
Right, she was
Like,
frozen. Yes, she was frozen in that
she lost
spin, like, it was she was a glitch at
Yeah,
that point.
right.
And then the little girl was, freaking out, having a panic attack,
Yeah.
and, all that to say is that if we can control that use that switch again and try to control that feeling and remember that we're here right now, and that's the only place we are, and it's the only place we need to be.
Such an interesting word, control, though, because it's like you wanna let go of control, but then you have to make a decision, which is decisive. You get to be decisive on the direction, but then let go of all the details in between. So it's so interesting, you know, because control can be so many different things.
Right, for sure.
Keep you stuck, keep you yeah, you know,
Maybe there's a good
in your loop.
control and a bad control, you know?
Yeah, that's why
Control the good emotions and control the bad emotions and
I'm thinking it's more like feeling it, you know? It's like anxiety just wanted to be seen and heard,
right.
right? And then she was like, "Oh," and then she could see the error of her ways, you know? But what
Yeah.
programs, we're running, what emotional programs are running, creating our realities
Yeah,
in a
and again, if we
constant
can
loop.
stop and take space and look back at that and say, "Okay, I see you, anxiety. I
Absolutely.
see what you're trying to do, and I appreciate what you're trying to do because you're really." Ultimately, it's a mechanism that our brain uses to help us so that we don't get into danger, is what it is. But if we could recognize it and say, "Okay, I see you. I see that you're just trying to help me, but you know what? I'm fine. Right now, I'm not in danger right now, and we don't need to go there right now." So I think the secret of the day today is realizing and noticing your emotions and recognizing them and being okay with them, but knowing that they have a place and time and making sure you're using that switch for the right reasons
Mhm.
and making using the best, taking the best of your time,
Yeah, absolutely.
if that makes sense. But
Mhm. Yeah.
yeah, so with that, I guess we can wrap it up for this episode. And we hope that you were able to get a little bit of goodness out of that. And maybe if you can think tonight of a way that you could flip that switch, just even if it's for the afternoon, try it. Just try flipping that switch, sit in front of the mirror and say, I'm doing this today
Yes.
and see how tomorrow goes.
Today I have peace, or I will have a peaceful day today. My intention is to have peace.
And that's right.
You know? I mean, I have an idea. Like before we close out the episode, it'll be like
Okay.
60 seconds. I mean, we can just do some 2 deep breaths where we're counting to 4, we're breathing in,
Okay.
and then counting to 8, breathing out. And this is flipping a switch on anxiety. Like whoever has anxiety right now, raise your hand, Or if it comes, you know what it feels like, right? So I mean, just doing something really simple like counting to 4 when you're taking a deep breath in. And we're gonna do it. And then out. 8 seconds.
You're not doing it.
I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And then, you get it.
Just take the time,
But I'm
man.
just saying, just
Yeah.
take the time, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the soul secret. That's my soul secret.
Time.
Take the time, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I hope you got a little bit of goodies out of this episode.
Yeah, and we can't wait to see you guys on the next episode where we can tell you a few more little soul secrets. Hope you guys have a good day.
Yes, y'all.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Please like and share. Thank you.